Tier lists are just the absolute perfect way to rank anything these days. So today, that is why I am starting off today, I'm going with the Red Bull drivers. Max Verstappen, where do you even begin with him? After winning 7 of the first 10 races, 2024 started to look like a repeat of 2023 with Verstappen dominance and an easy A star. That was until Red Bull decided to internally implode. After Max's Spanish Grand Prix win, he then went on a 10 race winless streak, which usually would be a problem for most world champions. However, most world champions haven't had to come up against the notorious combination of Lando Norris and McLaren. So that meant that Verstappen did have a relatively untroubled run to the title, did have many very questionable moments throughout the year. But regardless, it has to be an A star for Max. Now on to the man who defies speed, Sergio Perez. Now let me just read you some stats from Perez's 2024 season. He was outscored in points in the final 5 races of the season by Pierre Gasly, Nico Hulkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon, Kevin Magnussen and Zhou. After China, Perez went on a 19-race podiumless race streak. He failed to reach Q3 in qualifying 9 times throughout the season. 6 of those times he even failed to reach Q2. He was outqualified by Lawson in 50% of the races they did together. He was outqualified by Tsunoda 38% of the time and was even outqualified by Ricciardo in 28% of their races together too. In his last 8 Grand Prix, he scored 9 points, 2 more than Oliver Bearman scored in his 3 Grand Prix outings. The last time Perez scored a podium, Norris hadn't even won a single race. If Perez hadn't participated in a single Grand Prix after the first 4 races, then Red Bull still would have finished 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. He qualified P16, the same number of times that he finished on the podium. Yeah, bleak. Now going on to the championship runner-up, Lando Norris. A year with so much potential for the English driver. You can certainly say that for the majority of the season, McLaren had the fastest car, but most of the time were unable to take advantage of that, whether it was through individual mistakes from Norris or just incompetency from the team. I mean, Lando did sure have the pace, which was demonstrated with having 8 pole positions throughout the year, but regularly he'd be losing first place by the end of the first lap. But still, for Norris to take home 4 wins is still impressive considering he had gained the nickname Lando No Wins at the beginning of the year, going in A for me. Next up now is his teammate Oscar Piastri. A pretty strong year all things considered for the young Aussie. Achieved his first podium this season in Hungary, although that race was just overshadowed by whatever the hell was going on at McLaren. Oscar won again in Baku and achieved 6 further podiums, which is good at face value, but when you compare him to Lando, it's just a whole other story. He lost 21-3 to Norris in qualifying and was a whole 82 points behind in the standings. Piastri only finished above Sainz by 2 points, and this is a man who missed a whole race because of appendicitis. Gonna have to be a B. Now on to Charles Leclerc. Now in my opinion, this was Charles' best season in F1 to date. 3rd in the championship with 3 wins, 13 podiums and 3 poles. 2024 was great for Leclerc in that Ferrari, which some days looked like the F2004 reincarnated. He was only 18 points behind Lando too in the end. Can't forget those massive wins in Monaco and Monza, as well as beating Sainz 14-9 in qualifying, going in A for me. Now we have his teammate Carlos Sainz. Another strong year from the Spaniard. You could argue this was Carlos' best season at Ferrari too, after 2 wins, 9 podiums and a pole position this year. Was outshone by Leclerc, but that doesn't mean to say he didn't have his moments too. That win in Australia certainly was a statement, and the dominant win in Mexico proved his talent behind the wheel. Shame, because I don't know when he'll ever be this high up in the field again in F1. Has to go in B for me. Going on to Lewis Hamilton now. Yeah. This probably was Lewis's weakest season to date in F1. P7 in the Drivers' Championship and really outdone by Russell. But that being said, Lewis still did display his quality with 2 wins and 5 podiums along the way too, with that win in Silverstone being really special. But towards the tail end of the season, he really looked uninterested and unbothered by everything and looks desperate to depart Mercedes for Ferrari. C for Lewis. Now up next is George Russell. Yes, now I am British, I know, but I won't be implementing any so-called British bias that Verstappen seems to claim there is surrounding Russell. Really great season from George, finishing in P6 in what kind of seems like a major breakthrough year for him. He really had the better of Hamilton this year and seemed to have more of an effect on Verstappen too, unlike his compatriot Norris. Destroyed Hamilton in qualifying 19.5, picked up 2 wins, 4 podiums and 4 pole positions all throughout the year. Amazing success in that seriously uncompetitive Mercedes. Russell seems to be a good leader and main driver for the British outfit now, which has a massive Lewis Hamilton sized hole in it. A for George. Now I'm going on to Fernando Alonso. A really disappointing season for Alonso and Aston Martin after so much promised the year prior. Like, you can't deny going from P4 and 8 podiums in 2023 to P9 and 0 podiums in 2024 is just so discouraging. Alonso's highest finish came in Jeddah with a P5, which was the second race of the season. The Aston Martin just became more of a tractor the more the year went on. Still, when you compare him to his teammate, Alonso still absolutely destroyed him with a 19.5 record in qualifying, so that's why I'm putting him in B. Now we move on to his teammate Lance Stroll. God, what a bleak year for the Canadian. P13 in the standings and 46 points behind Alonso is just so terrible for a driver in his 8th season of F1. Don't even get me started on his Brazilian Grand Prix performance, or you could say lack of. He failed to score any points after Hungary, simply just has to be better from Stroll. D. Going on to Pierre Gasly now. Really impressive year from the Frenchman. After Bahrain, he was probably expecting a proper rough long season, but Alpine did eventually pull themselves together and strong performances did start to come. That car towards the end of the season was an absolute rocket with results like a podium in Brazil and P5 in Qatar. Gasly did have almost double Ocon's points, but there should be an asterisk next to that after Alpine did seriously fall out with Esteban in the end, and the difference in their car performances was slightly suspicious. Anyway, I'll take off my tinfoil hat. Gasly did destroy Zhou in qualifying 1-0. P10 overall in the standings, which is kind of the new best of the rest position, but Aston Martin was so bad that who even knows anymore what is considered best of the rest. B for Pierre, but had he not had that disastrous start to the season, then it would have been higher in the rankings. Now I'm going on to Esteban Ocon. Such a strange season for Ocon. He did actually beat Gasly 12-11 in qualifying, but as I previously highlighted, he did finish quite far back from him in the championship. The end of the season with Alpine did sadly taint the year as a whole for the French driver. Relations with Alpine and the French driver were sour and Gasly was constantly beating him. Like, Alpine literally replaced him with Jack Doohan for Abu Dhabi. He did still achieve a second place in Brazil, which could have been a win had the safety car not come out. C for Ocon. I'm not going to rank Jack Doohan because, well, he did one race. So next is Nico Hulkenberg. For sure one of the best midfield drivers of the year. So many unbelievable drives for Haas this year, it surely puts him down in Haas folklore. P11 in the championship, 10 points finishes and absolutely killed Magnussen 16-6 in qualifying. Lost count the number of times he reached Q3. Would have finished P10 had Gasly not had such a late surge in the season, going in A for me. Now on to Kevin Magnussen. In his, let's be real, last season of F1, K-Mag did underperform again compared to Hulkenberg, but that doesn't mean he didn't have his moments. We cannot forget his 5 points finishes throughout the season, and more importantly, his absolute terrorism he caused too. Just look at how perfectly he executed it in Jeddah to get Nico that points finish. It will have to be a C, but K-Mag will go down in our hearts with an A star. Next up is a driver that I don't really know whether he counts or not, but he's being included anyway. It's Oliver Bearman. The Brit competed in 3 Grand Prix, 2 for Haas and 1 for Ferrari, and he was pretty good in them. Actually, that's an understatement. He was so good that he was pretty much signed up for Haas for 2025 based off these performances, although it was like 80% already decided by Ferrari in 2023. Well, that's a story for another day. Anyway, Bearman finished P7, P10 and P12 in his 3 outings, which is quality. He outqualified and finished ahead of Hulkenberg in his 2 Haas races as well. It is a well-deserved A for Bearman. Now on to Yuki Tsunoda. Now the Japanese driver will be having very mixed feelings on his 2024 season. On one hand, he had the better of Ricciardo and Lawson, but on the other hand, he was snubbed for the 2025 Red Bull seat. So yeah. 2024 was Yuki's highest finish in the standings, although his rookie year is still his best point scoring season to date, thanks to that absolute rocket AlphaTauri in 2021. 9 point scoring races, destroyed both teammates in qualifying, and we cannot forget that qualifying performance in Brazil. However, there were still some downs throughout the season too, going in B for me. Now on to a driver that left the season what feels like ages ago now, Daniel Ricciardo. It wasn't meant to be for Ricciardo this year after being dropped after Singapore. Pretty mess season from him. 3 point scoring finishes and P17 in the standings, although he did have one of the coldest moments of the season when Jacques Villeneuve pretty much called him out for being washed. So Daniel responds to that by qualifying P5 in Canada. Shame he couldn't really replicate that form anywhere else though. D. Now onto the last V-Carb driver, Liam Lawson. Pretty impressive short stint again, you have to admit, from the Kiwi driver. 2 points finishes in 6 races and pretty much matching or being close enough most weekends to Tsunoda. Just demonstrates Lawson's talent this season. There's a reason why Red Bull have promoted him. His Grand Prix return in Austin was special after starting at the back of the grid due to an engine penalty. The rest is history as Lawson managed to finish in P9. I could talk about this guy behind the wheel all day. His only real bad race was in Las Vegas and Tsunoda did beat him 6-0 in qualifying, so going in B. Now we have Alex Albon. After 2023, Albon's stocks were at an all-time high after destroying Logan Sargeant, picking up 27 points and finishing P13 in the standings in a Williams. Well, this season in 2024, Alex destroyed Sargeant again, but this time only managed to pick up 12 points and finish P16 in the standings. And he even got shown up a bit by his new rookie teammate mid-season, which has casted a few questions in people's minds. As well as that, he also cost the team quite a bit in crash damage costs, like his car in Australia was so damaged that he had to use Sargeant's car instead. C for me. Now we're moving on to his teammate, Franco Colapinto. One of the surprises of the season. Colapinto is relatively unknown to most F1 fans before he stepped into the Williams at Monza, but he instantly made an impact by finishing P12 on debut, which is really impressive when you consider how we'd all grown used to seeing Latifi and Sargeant stink up the place every weekend for the past few years. He then scored points in 2 of the 3 following races and managed to out-qualify Albon on 2 occasions, but with all that being said, he still demonstrated that he is a rookie by crashing quite a lot. The thing I find most impressive with this season is by still finishing 9th in F2 after not competing in the final 4 rounds. Anyway, regardless, it's still going to be a B for Colapinto. Logan Sargeant. Yeah, just a hideous season for the American. After a pretty, let's be honest here, rubbish rookie year, Sargeant was given a second season to prove himself in F1. 2024 just did not go to plan, whether it was being out-qualified by Albon at every race, lounging around at the back of the grid each weekend, or even just being so off the pace that Williams made him give up his car for Albon in Australia. Fired mid-season, most obvious F on this list. Getting onto the last team on the grid now, starting with Valtteri Bottas. Probably the Finn's worst season in F1, and maybe his last 2. Didn't help with the Sauber producing an absolute tractor for him to drive. 0 points is rough, but Bottas did demolish Zhou in qualifying 21-3. He for sure did have the better of his teammate in 2024, despite what the points tally says. Shame for the nude model, but he's going to have to go in D. Now lastly, onto Zhou Guanyu. As I've just said, pretty disastrous season for the Chinese driver in the Sauber. Wrecked in qualifying by his teammate and often starting last on the grid. Don't even get me started on whatever that was in the Chinese Grand Prix. His race of the season did come in Qatar with an 8th place finish. Was helped by Lawson wiping out Bottas, but still a strong race regardless. But anyway, it's going to have to be an E for what will surely be Zhou's last ever F1 season. That's my final ranking for all the F1 drivers in 2024. Every one of these ratings are correct, so do your best to argue that in the comments. So with all that being said, please do subscribe. I desperately want to hit 100 subscribers as soon as possible. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.